Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Fantasy Flyer. My name is Derek. As with me, as always, is Taylor. Taylor, what's going on, dog?
Not too much, we're getting ready for the holidays. I see you got a nice holiday shirt on yourself.
Yeah, I'm firm. So here's the odd part. I actually firmly believe in respecting the time for Thanksgiving and going to Christmas after. There are some people who have had Mariah Carey on since like 12:01 on November 1st. So I'm away from that myself, but yes, I do have the festive holiday shirt on. And I'm a golfer in case you guys didn't know. It's a golf ball with a hat on. It's absolutely adorable. However, it is also the time for football talk. It is our second show of the week. We're getting ready for the week 10 slate. There's a few teams on bye because we are in, that time of the year. If you're paying attention to this show, hopefully you are because we're a minute into it. Please like, subscribe, give us some love, give us some hate even. I don't care. We want feedback. I actually did get, I forgot to tell you this pre-show, I did get an email from somebody and I don't know who it was, but we'll talk about that later. We're not going to talk about it on the air. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't bad. Don't worry.
Yeah, okay, I was gonna say some hater.
No, was not a hater, but I will let you take it off with our usual 9 segment news, injury notes, etc. Just to start us off in episode 20 already. So go ahead, Taylor, take it away.
Sure thing. So reminder, the buys this week, the teams on bye, Baltimore Ravens, Cincinnati Bengals, New England Patriots, and New York Jets. So kicking off with the Arizona Cardinals. It looks like Kyler Murray, which I hadn't seen anything about this, apparently has a hamstring injury and is questionable, along with Greg Dortch and his groin injury. The Kyler Murray thing, I didn't see like whether he practiced or not at certain points throughout the week. Hamstring injuries are like either insanely severe or not bad at all. So I don't really know what to say about this one. But it looks like he's going to be a game time call. Yeah, I'm not seeing anything particular or specific about like which days he practiced and whether he was limited or not. But that's obviously something that a lot of people are going to want to pay attention to and get some contingency plans in place. And then Buffalo Bills, same deal. Josh Allen, his right elbow, he continues to be questionable. Was a limited participant in Friday's practice. I really don't know. This could go either way again. Some of what I've heard is that he may not play, but I don't know. And it may not be up to him, but what I would say is knowing what I know in a limited capacity about him, I feel like he would do everything he could to get the team to allow him to play, but uh, that means nothing, obviously, right? Like the team, I would imagine, would rather have him sit out a game and protect their future. They have a fine record this season than force him in. So, yeah, that
Agreed.
again, keep an eye on him and have contingency plans. Um, Dallas, Zeke is questionable. Obviously, he's been kind of having injury problems throughout the season, and like he sat out last week.
Well, everyone did.
Yeah, that's
He
sorry,
was he
two
was on
weeks
fire.
ago. um, so yeah, monitor that. Pollard very much in play, obviously, again, if he's out. Denver, KJ Hamler, kind of their third wide receiver, not necessarily third pass catching option, but third wide receiver, speedy guy that they like to throw some bombs to every once in a while. He's questionable. If he's out, bump for their top three options, Sutton, Judy, and Dulcich, probably more of a bump for Dulcich. Um, Detroit, Josh Reynolds, his back injury is continuing to plague him. He is out, so Khalif Raymond gets a bump. Maybe their tight end shit show that they're trying to figure out now that Hawkinson's gone. I don't know. Um, Green Bay, Romeo Dobbs. We talked about this on Tuesday, but just kind of a reminder, he has a high ankle sprain. He is out and will miss 4 to 6 weeks. So obviously Lazard, Tunyon, Sammy Watkins surprisingly has been less involved in a weird way.
I have no idea about what they're doing. They signed him for I don't. What are you doing? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a weird situation there. Aaron Jones could get more pass catching. There's a rookie. I can't remember if he was 7th round or undrafted, but
Bouye?
his name, Samori Torre or something.
Who's that Pokemon?
Yeah, basically. Let's see. He was a 7th round pick. His name is Samori Torre, if I'm saying that correctly. He
Are you
has.
sure about that?
He's actually seen a bit of an uptick. Nothing amazing, but there were some rumblings about him preseason.
He did okay last week. He had a catch for what, 36 yards, and so, like, did he have a touchdown, or was that the week before?
I think it was the week before. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Because the Packers didn't do anything last week except watch Aaron Rodgers throw red zone interceptions.
Yeah.
No, but he had he seems to be like the silent, like him and Dobbs, I think, are the silent killers over Christian Watson, which is surprising. But yeah. I don't hate the stretch to reach for him in deep leagues.
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, just throwing that name out there for people in deeper leagues or maybe even dynasty. Moving on to Houston, Nico Collins, Brandon Cooks, groin and wrist respectively are both questionable. Cooks did log limited practices Thursday and Friday, so he seems more likely to play than Nico Collins, but they didn't really say one way or the other about Nico Collins and his practices, so I don't know how many people are actually using Nico Collins, but Brandon Cooks obviously the more notable thing, and it seems like he's going to play. Indianapolis, Jelani Woods, shoulder, Deion Jackson, knee, they are both out. Mo Alley Cox ankle is questionable, did return to limited practice on Friday. So Jelani Wood, they have a bunch of tight ends that they sort of circulate. Maybe Mo Alley Cox or Kylan Granson get a bump. More so Kylan Granson if Cox is out, Jelani Woods out.
Granson is actually the one on their depth chart.
Is he the one?
Yeah, I just checked when I looked down this when you were talking about Detroit to Green Bay. I looked down like, is that leaves who? And I was like, oh, that's right, Colin Granson. And
Okay.
Depth chart. He is, according to ESPN depth chart, he's number 1, which is interesting. So
yeah, okay, that might be a potential flyer. I don't know how well the tight end matchup is. I didn't look, but the thing to note here for Indianapolis is that Jonathan Taylor not on the injury report, full participant Thursday and Friday, so that's great. Especially Deion Jackson being out. Their fallback would be Zach Moss. They got rid of or waived Philip Lindsay, so yeah, I guess Zach Moss. I don't know who else. Anyways,
that's that's why they traded for him.
Right. So yeah, hopefully that's they obviously, we talked about this on Tuesday. They have interim coach Jeff Saturday, so I don't know what he can do for the offensive line, but I would imagine he would lean on his star players being Jonathan Taylor and Michael Pittman, and yeah, so hopefully it's the JT and Pittman show. Kansas City, Mecole Hardman, abdomen is out. Jerick McKinnon, knee and hamstring is questionable. The Hardman news being more notable since he's been pretty involved. Maybe that means Tony gets fired up a little earlier. This is his second week or week and a half now that he's been with them, so. Las Vegas Raiders. This really stinks. Darren Waller and Hunter Renfro are both being placed on IR. Huge blow for the team, although they weren't really getting to use them because of all their injury issues. So Foster Moreau, Mac Hollins should see big upticks, or they just go ham and give everything to Devontae Adams.
I mean,
I guess Josh Jacobs.
Yeah, there's a lot of gray area there because Honestly, I'm hotter on Foster than Mac. Mac can't see a crazy uptick. He was already averaging like 6 or 7 targets a game over his last like if he plays like 70% of snaps, which he has in a lot of games this year,
Mhm.
he ends up seeing somewhere between 6 and 7, if not more targets, depending on the game. Keelan Cole is next in line, and we've seen Keelan Cole be extremely sneaky. Yeah, Hollins has played 80. The lowest amount of snaps he played is 85%. That was last week. He's played more than that so many times. Keelan Cole played 15% last week. I would think he would probably be the biggest beneficiary, along with Foster Moreau.
Yeah, the one thing I would say is Mac Hollins is actually a pretty big dude. He's like 6'4".
He's gonna catch balls. Like, don't sleep on him by any means.
Yeah,
But I think just because of his snaps and where the passes go, if you're taking that pressure off Hunter Renfrow, that the next in line to place that pressure is on Mac Hollins. So
right.
that's why I think he can still see his 7-8 targets. I think it just comes down to everything else, and that
Yeah.
would be cool. So I don't know. You never know. Adams and him could both go for 10 or 12 targets. Moreau could have 3, and that'll be it. But
Yeah. Yeah, we'll have to see how it shakes out. We've obviously, like to your point, see Hollins already be involved. So for him to really be too much more involved might be, to your point, not what we see here. We might see these other guys get more involved. Chargers, Keenan Allen continues to be out. Good God, this poor man, like at this point, is it even worth him coming back this season? I mean, yes, the Chargers would want him back. He makes a huge difference for Herbert. Mike Williams being out, Josh Palmer, Gerald Everett, fire him up.
yeah,
Austin
30-year-olds with
obviously.
hamstring injuries are a problem.
Yeah.
So, the sad part is this is an indication that his career is probably going to start turning down because injuries are going to start taking longer. I mean, look at Michael Thomas. Michael Thomas is in the same boat. A toe that probably would have cost him 3 or 4 weeks, 3 years ago. He's done for the year now. So, not to say the hamstring's the same or it's the same injury in the same context or whatever it is, but this is taking him 6 games, 6 weeks, 5 games to get it out. I hate it for Allen because he's a great wide receiver, but coming back at the end of the year, Mike Williams is gonna look mighty tasty at this point.
Yeah.
Also, buy low on Mike Williams.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm gonna add that right now. Just go ahead and buy, because if it happens that it spreads into next year, and especially in keeper leagues, you got value if you trade for him. If you don't, you're going into the playoffs. Mike Williams is good depth.
Yeah, for sure. I was gonna say, man, do I regret letting him go? I held on to him for like 3 seasons, maybe 2 seasons, and then the next season he just started going off once they got Herbert, basically.
Right.
Moving on to the Rams. Their running back room, whatever you want to call it, is a shit show, obviously, but it will now be even more of a shit show. They are activating Kyron Williams off of IR, Malcolm Brown out, whatever. But so now they have Cam Akers, Kyron Williams, Henderson, Kyron Williams.
Ronnie Rivers.
Ronnie Rivers, yeah. We talked about this. He was somebody that they really liked preseason before he got hurt. It sounded like they kind of wanted to actually make him a big part of the offense. We'll see. I wouldn't say this week, but we'll see what happens here if he actually is talented enough to take over. And then also Matthew Stafford apparently is in concussion protocols and is questionable. He did have a limited practice on Friday. New Orleans, Mark Ingram, who was out previously, is out again with a knee injury. Alvin Kamara continued to feast. Tampa Bay, Cameron Brate, neck injury is now questionable. If he does come back, this may hamper Cade Otton's usage, who has actually been pretty involved lately. So if you are looking for somebody as a flyer, Cade Otton may no longer fit that bill. That being said, even if Cameron Brate comes back, what they've been able to do with Cade Otton, especially this first week, him coming back, I don't know how much it eats into Otton, but something to watch out for.
Otton might be the tight end one there from now, just because Brate hasn't had a great rapport with Tom Brady, but now you've seen Otton do this for 3 games now and
Right.
he was the leading receiver last game in yards. So
Yeah.
something's there, and this is a fantastic tight end matchup against Seattle. So
Yeah.
man, if he doesn't come back, Cade Otton is a sure start. Like
For sure.
fire
Yeah.
him up.
Yeah. Finally, yeah, I don't have anything for Washington. Last but not least, Tennessee, Treylon Burks, designated to come off of IR, cleared for practice. That was news from like Wednesday. There was, I didn't see any follow-up as to whether he did practice and officially come off of IR. So I don't know necessarily what this means for this Sunday, but they need wide receiver help. So hopefully, if not this week, obviously next week. And then the big news here, Ryan Tannehill with his ankle injury is listed as questionable and was a limited participant in Friday's practice. So that's a huge piece that they need back, obviously. Malik has not been phenomenal and is definitely not NFL ready yet. That is it for the 9.
All right. One little side note for Washington. Jahan Dotson was spotted practicing, running routes and catching today.
Oh.
So I don't is he on IR?
No, I think he's been out basically. Yeah.
We talked about him for a while. I don't see any breaking news as of
He's
right
still
now.
labeled as out from what I'm seeing.
Well, yeah, just because he hasn't. I mean, running a route and catching a ball a few times doesn't exactly make him feel
Right.
great. Yeah, I don't see any breaking news right now, so that's good. All right. That was our 9 segment. We'll reference some of those. We're gonna go right into our 4 down segment. Nice little game of 4 downs. For those of you who aren't familiar with the segment, I'm gonna read 4 sentences, or Taylor is, whatever. The other person is going to rate those statements from least likely to most likely, or most likely to least likely, as long as they're in a coherent order. It doesn't really matter. So do you want to go first? Or you want to go second?
Yeah, I can kiss off.
Okay.
Down number 1. Brady is a top 8 QB this week. As you just mentioned, he plays Seattle, which tends to give up a decent amount. Jeff Wilson outperforms Raheem Mostert rest of season. Mooney is a top 20 wide receiver this week. They play Detroit.
Okay.
Dulcich is a top, and this one I was still trying to figure out the line. I'm gonna go with 7. Top 7 tight end this week. They play Tennessee.
So Brady is a top 8 quarterback. Dulcich is a top 7 tight end. Jeff Wilson outscored Mostert rest of season. And what was the last one?
Mooney is a top 20 wide receiver this week.
Against Detroit. Damn Cats. That's tough. So Mooney's going up against Detroit, which of course is, this is a running team, and that's what you have to remember. And they also just got Chase Claypool, who seemed to be immediately involved. So I'm going to put that as least likely. I'm going to put Jeff Wilson outscoring Raheem Mostert. As
that one's rest of season, just to FYI.
Right. That one is, you're talking about PPR fantasy points?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's going to be 3rd for me. The next least likely. Second most likely. You should start making numbers for these.
I know.
Next one is Dulcich top 7. Most likely is Brady top 8. He already throws the ball enough, both yardage and attempts wise. They don't run the ball like hardly at all. So he just really needs to find the end zone. If there's one thing that Seahawks aren't really all that great at, it's stopping stuff in the red zone. So I feel like, yeah, I think that's good. Yeah, I'm gonna go with that. I'm gonna go with exactly whatever that whatever order I put those in again. Brady, most likely Brady top 8. Second likely Dulcich top 7. Third most likely Mostert being outscored by Wilson rest of season. And least likely Mooney. Top 20.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, I can get behind that. The biggest thing I think for most people is like Brady and the Bucks have been such a huge disappointment, but he is throwing the ball a ton. And like we said, they're playing Seattle. So nobody has a home field advantage. Obviously, they're over in Munich.
Yep.
So
And I'm pretty sure that that's gonna actually that kind of is rough for both teams, especially Seattle.
yeah,
Seattle has like a 20-hour flight to get there.
something, yeah. At least 12.
That's for sure. I'm trying to find out because I'm interested now actually to see what the red zone percentage is for the Seahawks, but I don't have it in my stats. So I'm just going to move along and go with my 4 downs. You ready?
Lay it on me.
All right. Down number 1, Ken Walker has more than 25 fantasy points for Tampa Bay. Down numero dos. Aaron Jones outscores Miles Sanders in PPR fantasy points this week. Aaron Jones is against Dallas. Miles Sanders is against Washington. Number 3, down number 3. Chase Claypool has more fantasy points than Gabe Davis this week. Down number 4. Justin Fields has 28 fantasy points or more versus Detroit.
28.
28. Is it an arbitrary number? You bet your ass. Well, he had 42 last week, so I give him the 66%, I guess. Maybe it's less arbitrary than I thought.
Okay. Let me see. So Pittsburgh plays New Orleans. Okay.
Who are you talking about with Pittsburgh?
Oh wow, Claypool is no longer there.
Oh boy.
Well, in that case, Chicago plays Detroit, right? Okay.
Sorry.
These are good. This one's got me thinking. Man, I like these a lot.
I come up with most of these. I just want to let you know that I come up with most of these literally out of my rear end. Like there's almost no structure to these. So
so the Claypool Gabe Davis one. So if Allen plays, I would say that Gabe would outscore Claypool, so that being my least likely. If Allen doesn't play, then that completely flip-flops.
Brian makes him your most likely, huh?
What's that?
Brian
Before it makes him
one of your most likely.
All right, so I might actually go least likely.
Okay. All right.
Well, not that. Aaron Jones outscoring Miles Sanders is my least likely, just because Dallas is a pretty good defense. And Sanders, I mean, they're both involved, but Sanders has been very involved. He's clearly the number one. Jones is, I would say, the number one, but it's like it's not necessarily a 1A, 1B, but it's close.
Right.
So that's my least likely. Followed by, I'm gonna go with Allen playing. So I'm gonna say second least likely, Claypool outscoring or having more fantasy points than Gabe Davis this week. And then I will say 25 points, 28 points. Those are kind of high, but they are. I'll put Ken Walker more than 25 points versus Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay decent against the run. As my, yeah, this is weird. This is where it gets weird. You like flip the line. My second most likely. And then Justin Fields has 28 or more points, fantasy points this week as my most likely.
Okay.
28 is high, but
I mean, with his rushing upside and the fact
exactly.
that Detroit would, like, Detroit's defense would be better in like a baseball stadium than playing defense against a football team.
Yeah.
I like that. I like that a lot. Aaron Jones definitely gonna have problems with Dallas. The one thing I will say is that Miles Sanders hasn't quite been Miles Sanders of the first few weeks, last couple. So I'm hoping the game script will just allow him to like have 4 or 5 solid minutes at the end of the game, just running the ball.
Mm.
And honestly, I think that's going to make it close because Aaron Jones is still, he's a monster. Chase Claypool, I mean, tough one there because you're almost betting against yourself with that one in Justin Fields. Like
Right.
you put Claypool has more points than Davis, and probably Justin Fields is more likely to hit 28, so it's rough. Ken Walker with more than 25 fantasy points would probably require 2 touchdowns. But unfortunately, well, fortunately, I should say, unfortunately for Tampa Bay, that seems all that entirely likely. So I like that. Good game. Good game. I want to sit back down now because my back's hurting. Yeah, here we are. Okay, so good game of 4 downs. Let's real quick review the Thursday night football game. We'll do it very lightly. As I mentioned on Tuesday's show, I could not in any sense watch this game. Prior engagements last night. Did you happen to peek at it at all?
Yeah, I was watching it off and on. I mean, it's more or less what we expected.
I don't know. We saw a whole, from what it looks like, we saw a whole different game 11 days ago or 12 days ago than we did last night.
And what are you specifically thinking about there?
Every team scored all the time 2 weeks ago.
Oh, this exact matchup. Yeah.
Yes, 37-34. And that did not seem like that was the case for at least the first quarter. It didn't seem like it was 3-0 at the end of the first. Like nobody did a heck of a lot of anything.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, when I said it's kind of what we expected, I was thinking more of not that exciting game.
Oh well, of course,
because these teams struggle to do a heck of a lot and are inconsistent. And that's kind of what we saw here. Like, yeah, first quarter 0-3. Then Carolina kind of picks it up a little bit. I will say PJ Walker, he's not, when he's throwing when he's hitting his mark, he's fine. But yeah, it's just like, he's not obviously a like elite quarterback. He's going to make bad decisions.
He's young.
Yeah.
It seems like he's young. I don't know his actual age, but well, with most quarterbacks, if they hit their mark, they're good, and when they don't, they're bad. So that's the unfortunate part. Is like that's something nice to say about PJ Walker.
Yeah, right.
That's literally the bar minimum for your job. I'm more impressed with the run game from Carolina now.
Yes.
I didn't see how many yards did Chuba Hubbard have?
14 on 5 attempts.
Yeah. So Dante Foreman.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, Chuba Hubbard coming back from an injury, is that part of it? I personally don't think so, but it could be. But Deonta Foreman's just been so dominant and doing well with his opportunities that I don't see why they would shy away from that.
Do you see the Panthers as a likely landing spot for any running back, whether it's through free agency or the draft? Because I see them as like, it's not exactly the greatest offensive spot, but that's more so passing game. I wouldn't be surprised to see a free agent running back go ham Sammy and go to Carolina, just knowing that they're probably going to be the RB1 unless they get hurt. Like,
Yeah, I
like I
mean,
literally only know 2 free agents that are running back free agents, but like the question still stands.
yes,
I have to
It's
put
not
them in
out
like
of
my
the
top 3.
right, but at the same time, Deonta Foreman, yes, he had that Achilles injury. He's come back, and even last season, he showed good potential, and now we're seeing him do it multiple games in a row. He's only 26 years old, so if they want to stick with him, I like if I was head coach GM, I could get behind that and maybe draft an RB in like the 4th round, maybe the 3rd round, and not go crazy for someone high. They obviously need a quarterback,
Right.
and they could use some defensive help. So I would be okay if they didn't next year.
Okay. I mean, the free agency list is large, but I would think that's one of the top places to go because you just know what was there. Deontay Foreman picked up who did he pick up from? Christian McCaffrey. He carved out a role for that running game, which Deontay Foreman has filled. And maybe like kind of a hexagon in a round hole, but he's there for the most part. Free agency class names include Josh Jacobs. Actually, Deontay Foreman is an undrafted free agent next year.
Okay.
He's on this list. So he's not the youngest either. Josh Jacobs is a year younger than him. Somehow Saquon Barkley's a UFA this year? No way.
Really?
That's what it says. I don't know. I'm reading the damn list. I don't make it. Where's the other juicy name that I just saw? Jamal Williams from Detroit, who is 8 touchdowns this year. Also another name. So any one of those sound really good to me. I don't know. Of course, Devin Singletary, David Montgomery's a UFA. There's a lot of really good running backs. And then, of course, you got to deal with who's coming out of the draft class. That would be one of my spots to go. So then I'm starting to think that way as a Deontay Foreman owner right now. He's good when he's good, and he's good like 80% of the time. Other than that, maybe a sell high candidate. Other than that, Terrace Marshall is probably the biggest gainer from the trades that have already happened. Robbie Anderson, CMC. He only had 1 catch.
Only 2 targets too.
Right. And that's a little concerning. I think we both can agree that that's not exactly warming of the heart, so to speak. But he did have 89% snap share, which is the exact same as DJ Moore. So they both played 59% of the snaps. So he, to me, as being that wide receiver 2, he's another one where you can probably add it to the stash list for the postseason. Because there's Sam Darnold around the corner who, fingers crossed, knock on wood, will keep that going. I don't know why it would change. Steve Wilkes apparently is very much a fan of Terrace Marshall over Shi Smith, who we saw be completely flip-flopped at the beginning of the year. Shi Smith was getting 60, 70, 80%, and Terrace Marshall was hardly seeing the field.
Yeah. And he does he gets some bombs. He's more of a boom bust guy. If he gets a couple of bombs and a touchdown, that's awesome. But
that's the LSU in him.
Yeah.
That's really what it boils down. Is it LSU? Shit, now I'm doubting myself.
Actually, wait.
That's what I'm saying. I feel like I just said the wrong
It
college.
is. No, it is, right? Because that's
is?
where Chase Burrow. Yeah.
That's what I was about to say. Like,
Yeah.
he came from one of them. Like, you're waiting now.
Because he played with Chase. Yeah, LSU. Yep.
For the Falcons, it seemed like their problems in this game, from what it looked like, started with Mariota. I saw it during the game on Twitter. because I couldn't watch the game, and that was how I was getting some of my updates. Was that there were people calling for Desmond Ritter to play. Desmond Ritter wouldn't have made that mistake. I saw the crazy, stupid throw once he basically got sacked. I don't understand, and then almost got intercepted. Was that an interception?
I don't
threw up
remember.
in my mouth, so I stopped watching. He like rolled over and like he's down and like barely holding himself up and just flings the ball. Like, well,
Yeah.
and you're supposed to be a starting quarterback. Go sit down and think about what you've done. Because it wasn't. Oh my god,
Oh fuck! I can't believe you've done this.
that was my thought. Drake London had probably I would consider that a bounce back game, much needed. His ceiling is still rather unattainable compared. Like his ceiling is wide receiver 2, and that's what he hit. He's not going to catch 10 balls. He's not going to go for 120 yards and have 2 touchdowns, which really is like sky high RB or a wide receiver 1. But to hit like 20 fantasy points consistently is just not in his realm with Mariota as quarterback.
Yeah.
Similar to the Panthers with running back, they're not playing Desmond Ritter right now. This game puts the Falcons at what, 4-6?
3-7.
3-7. Is the season sold now?
Oh, I'm sorry. The Falcons 4-6. I was looking at the Panthers. Yeah.
I thought it was 4-6. You lied. Are you starting to get the feeling of we should start playing Desmond Ritter and see if he's worth it, and then regroup for if we need another quarterback?
Yeah.
Because Mariota has a problem with big game, not
He's
big plays. He can be clutch, but like if you need to get downfield quick, he's not a get downfield quick guy. And it happened in this game where they needed a touchdown. They had less than 4. They had a 4-minute offense. They could get it done.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I don't think Ritter is much of a rushing quarterback. I could be wrong in the way that Mariota can be. And that is the only thing I would say that Mariota has going for him. And it's not a lot. But on occasions,
I agree.
like he's had a couple of good games where he does use his legs. That's not to say that I think he should continue to be the starter, but that division, they are not out of the hunt.
Mhm.
Is it time to make the switch? As you asked,
Maybe.
I would say record wise, probably. And you want to see what you have in the kid. Division wise, like what's actually happening in that division, I could see why they wouldn't.
Right. Gonna have to wait and see, unfortunately. I would think about it if I'm them. And you know it's not lost, but it's time to debate it. Carolina, Walker 10 for 16 with 108 yards, Foreman 130 on the ground with a touchdown. Laviska Shenault, 3 catches, 17 yards, 2 rushes, 42 yards and a touchdown. Marshall had the catch for 43 yards. DJ Moore, 6 targets, 4 catches, 29 yards. For Atlanta, Mariota 19 for 30, probably one of the higher passing totals we've seen out of him. 186 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, had 43 on the ground. The rest of the running backs combined for like 90 some yards, 70 of them to Patterson, Algier, and Huntley. Demir Bird had 58 on 3 catches, 4 targets. Drake London, 5 catches, 6 targets, 38 yards, the touchdown, putting him in that wide receiver 2. Yeah, Thursday night game, you can kind of let it slide. Real quick, we're going to take a break, our first break. We're going to come back. We're going to go into the week 10 preview. Taylor, sign us off.
See you on the other side.
Deuces. And welcome back to part 2 of the Fantasy Flyer. Part numero 2. We're going to keep going, jump right in. Week 10 preview, and we jump in even further, like a dolphin into the deep blue sea. We're going to start off Vikings at the Bills. I said it on Tuesday's show, probably the most intriguing matchup of this week. Like my focus matchup myself. Vikings are 7-1. Bills are 6-2. Oh, so lowly. How the mighty have fallen. Buffalo 3.5 point favorites. That is with Josh Allen presumably in, which I think we both agree he's probably going to play. Over under at 43.5, which seems a hair low to me. But more importantly, this is the first of our host v host matchups.
Round one. Fight.
Ooh,
Yeah,
switching it up.
yeah, give you a little spice, a little sugar and spice, little sugar spice. This is the game of the first place powerhouses. There's no punches pulled. If they can play Josh Allen, I think the Bills will. I don't see why they wouldn't. I understand your sentiment when you were talking in the 9 segment about, well, your record's not bad. You should play it. This is a staple game for you. This is a measuring stick.
Mm.
Probably, not probably, 2 of the top 8 teams in the league, which is what the playoffs is. On both sides. So I can't see any reason to pull any punches here. New game in terms of integrating Nyheim Hines for the Bills and TJ Hawkinson for the Vikings. It's going to be a bit of a secondary pressure for the Bills. They aren't going to have Jordan Poyer again, I believe. I saw that. So
Yeah, I think Tremaine Edmonds is questionable.
Yeah, that secondary could be in for a rough time for a few downs. You have to guard Thielen, Hawkinson, and Jefferson. And that's just a big play midfield and whatever I want to do because I'm 275 pounds of TJ Hawkinson.
Yeah.
Big man. Besides the matchups of the teams, you have the positionary matchups. Justin Jefferson and Stephon Diggs, 2 of the top 5 wide receivers in the league. Like, who has more yards to you this week? I go Diggs.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that. He's much more, not much more targeted, but a higher team target percentage.
I can get that. Well, only because Allen hasn't thrown so much of it. He hasn't thrown 45 times in 3 games.
Right.
Or 40 times in 3 games or something like that. And that's perfectly fine. Like, I would agree with. He also has less competition. Dawson Knox isn't TJ Hawkinson. Gabe Davis is a good deep thrower. He's really not target-wise comparable to Adam Thielen, I wouldn't say. Does Josh Allen play? We both think he does. Obviously, it makes a huge difference if he doesn't. Being a host v host matchup, I had to take the inconsequential route because I'm starting to lose my lead. Also, personally, I think the defense, like we talked about on Tuesday's show, you beat their defense with your defense, you win. It's not if you beat their offense with your offense. Their offense panics, struggles, both when your defense succeeds and their defense doesn't like that pressure. We've seen it. So both teams defend the run well. They're 6th and 7th respectively in overall run progression for opposing teams. However, the passing defenses are vastly different, which is another reason why I think our Stephon Diggs takes are very, very on key. Vikings are combined 23rd versus the pass. Bills are 5th. So missing some tools for the Bills will probably even out this matchup a bit. But I would take the Stephon Diggs over in that route. And again, this is the method put to the test, is this Vikings defense, which has clamped when it needs to specifically. Can it out defend the Bills on a standard? You have a top 10, top 12 running back in Dalvin Cook. You have a top 10 quarterback in Kirk Cousins. You have a top 10 tight end. You have a top 5 wide receiver, and you have a secondary top wide receiver who has enough experience to cover all of them. So, my start is Gabe Davis out of this. I think he becomes quintessential for the Bills in this game. He needs to match that Adam Thielen. He needs to make up for the difference between Knox and Hawk. And he can do it. He has deep play pass, especially when they throw him out of the slot. Sometimes he just does it just by his own. So I don't have any sits in this game, which is probably smart because I think just about every offensive weapon is going to be key. One of them will underperform. 2 of them will underperform, something like that. But there's no easy way to predict which one that'll be this particular week. Bills allow 4.3 yards per attempt, so I would say Dalvin Cook is probably touchdown dependent, and they are still a top 3 rush defense. So that would hold me on Dalvin Cook, but he's also involved in the pass game. So and he can score touchdowns. So I'm not afraid of that. I'm taking Minnesota 28-26.
I'm also taking Minnesota.
Good.
Um,
I mean, that
so
secures my lead through this game,
yeah.
unless you get the
So
score.
I guess the one thing that like, if we assume Allen plays, does he throw even less? Like, not that he's throwing, like he's middle of the road. Does he throw even less and rely on his legs more, or do the throws become shorter? I don't know. That was sort of a little bit of my thinking. I don't think that they can, if they're going to do that, they're not going to win this game. Anyways, that also the secondary concerns. So I have the Vikings 24, Bills 19.
Okay. I would think, in response, in my opinion, on your question, I would think that if he's going to play, he's going to be as close to 100%. I don't
Yeah.
think, I don't, he didn't, in practice from the notes that I've seen all over the place, he doesn't look like he's pulling punches there. So it looks like he's throwing when he needs to throw, and there's very little side effect to his, you know what I mean? He's not ducking, dipping, throwing short.
Yeah. Well,
So,
the good
which would
news
lead me to believe
is,
he's playing.
yeah, the good news is the particular, what was it, a UCL or whatever, that
Yep.
particular injury is something that affects pitchers a lot more in the way that they throw as opposed to the release of the football. So it's like that whipping motion that the pitchers use.
Mhm.
It bothers them a lot more. It's more of a severe injury when it happens to them as opposed to quarterbacks in the way that they release the ball. So that's also another thing in his favor and what they try
I
to do.
I think he plays, and I think it, to the most part, he's going to dispel rumors somewhat quickly that he can't throw it deep. So
Yeah.
that's why I think he's going to outthrow Kirk Cousins. I think he'll have 50 or 75 more yards than Kirk Cousins at minimum. That's my take on it. Next game, Cowboys 6-2 at the Packers 2-6. Dallas 4.5-point favorites in Lambeau, which should tell you how this is probably a full touchdown spread anywhere else, aka Dallas. Over unders 43. We know the Dallas defense is not made up of fools or weak people. They turn names. I thought about this like on Wednesday's show when I started to type up, or on Wednesdays, right when I was typing up this plan. And I was like, man, they turned some nobodies on the defensive line into a lot of monsters. Zua, Dorrance Armstrong. Like I remember 2 years ago, I picked up Dorrance Armstrong in our league, and I was like, why did I do that? He has I think he has 8 sacks this year. He's one behind Micah. So
Damn.
yeah, he's grown just a wee bit. Rodgers has a great record against Dallas in his career. If I'm not mistaken, over their last 8 games, I think he is 6-2 against Dallas. It might even be more than that. They've only lost twice in like the last 8 or 9 games to Dallas. So Mike McCarthy returns home. Another small side note from this: he's going to go back to his old stomping grounds in Lambeau at the Cheeseheads. Hey there, guy.
Rodgers.
Yeah, Rodgers. Hey, Rodgers throwing the ball. To me, when I'm looking through the stats on this, I feel like the rushing offense efficiency has to be key. More specifically, Green Bay has to stop Dallas's rush. Green Bay runs the ball 40% of the time. Dallas is 48% of the time. So Dallas is more 50-50. Zeke he was trending towards playing as of most recent. He was still listed questionable. Likely to return is my best estimation. I think it's fair. If we're projecting Allen to go in, I'm going to take Zeke in. Pollard has been just explosive all year. They each average 63 yards per game, like the exact same number, which is crazy. The only difference is Pollard's done it on 75 less carries or something stupid. I don't think it's quite that many. But Green Bay, on the other hand, has 2 powerhouse wide running backs themselves. They have almost no wide receivers. Sorry. But AJ was sliding down the snap count, with the exception of the injury last week where he outsnapped Aaron Jones, the other
Jones.
AJ. Yeah. 66-41, and that was only because of his injury. He left the game. I see them having to stop. They're 28th in rushing defense. Green Bay is. Like quietly, they've been garbage against the run. They're 4th least in air yards allowed and 30th in completions allowed. So they're not like, it's important to know. Green Bay has to be prepared for this defense. On the other side of the ball, Rodgers has the experience. We know we haven't seen the play from him this year, but there's gotta be a little spark in there, man. That'd be a little something there. So if they're gonna have a chance, not a chance, that's a lie. If they're going to have the upper hand in this game, if they want to pull it out of Dallas's control, Rodgers has to be beyond old school Rodgers, and he has to spread the ball. You're going to see Tunyon, you're going to see Watkins, you're going to see is Dobbs playing? Not Dobbs, Torrier, whatever the heck his name is that we still don't know how to say it. So sorry. You're good at football, but I don't know your name. All of it. They're all going to have to like take a little bit of a bump up. And like passes on the spot. The secondary is lively. Malik Hooker is back for Dallas. He's been quietly a top 30 cornerback in the league. And that's saying something for there already being another one on the other side of the field in Trayvon Diggs. So the defense is going to be the name of the game for Green Bay. It's almost, you can't ignore the scoreboard, but you have to be like, how do I get past the defense every drive? And if you get downfield and you get clogged in the red zone, you kick a field goal, that's a win. And start there and build. Start Zeke, start Pollard. Trust the rush game. I'm going to sit Rodgers because I think he gets pounded in this game. Any quarterback. Justin Fields is mobile. He got sacked 3 times. So I see Rodgers as being, he can scramble, but he's no fast guy there. So I'll take Dallas. I'll take Dallas in this one and probably close to a touchdown, maybe even 8 or 9 points.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know that I have too much to add. Green Bay has been a mess. They continue to have rotating wide receivers due to injuries. I don't know that they've had enough time to really build a rapport together, Rodgers and these receivers outside of Lazard and Tunyon that he already has some with. So Lazard, Tunyon, Aaron Jones, sort of Dylan. That's going to be their game, and then somebody else is going to step up, and it's not going to be enough.
Who's going to step up,
Right.
Yeah, so we're both taking Dallas on that one. Moving along, we'll go to the Munich game. Seahawks at 6-3 versus the Buccaneers at 4-5. Both of them leading divisions. There's a G in division now. Divisions. That's going to be a new one. That's what we're going to say. Tampa Bay is favored in this one. 2.5 points over under at 44.5. I'm not 100% sure why it's 2.5 towards Tampa Bay.
Yeah, I have no idea.
The only thing I can put out is it's the last thing that I've written here, but it doesn't really make, with no home field advantage. This is kind of weird. I guess there's more of an experience in playing out of, I'd say out of your arena, but they're both out of they're not only out of their arena, they're not only out of their state, they're out of their country. I still take Geno as the better quarterback than Brady as far as a completion percentage, being more protective of not protective of the ball, because Tampa Bay is tied for second least in the league in turnovers. So Brady's protecting the ball, but moving the ball, I guess, would be more efficient of a word. Walker runs, Fournette tries. Big staple of this game. Kenneth Walker can run. Leonard Fournette is trying to find a way through his own offensive line half the time. Do you think Rachaad White, in your opinion, gets more touches again this week? He has been catching. He's been almost been like 50-50 for the past like 2 games. I would think Rachaad White has to be like, they have to be cautious because you're not trying to sacrifice a game when you're leading very closely the division with a very poor record. But I would think that he has to be getting 40 to 50% of snaps again.
Yeah.
I shouldn't
guess,
say again. He had 35 last week, but still,
okay.
same question.
So Fournette actually came out and said that he wants, which is weird. He said he wants more work, or he's not happy with the amount of work he's getting. And like weeks ago, he said, yeah, weeks ago he said the opposite, or like maybe it wasn't him, maybe it was the coaching staff. Somebody said that they want to lessen it a little bit because he was getting like basically everything. So between him wanting to get more work and Brady having more trust and rapport with him, I could see I could see it changing in favor of Fournette. That being said, I don't think Fournette's been very effective. Maybe in the beginning of the season he was like kind of effective, but like
There's no thing.
right.
He's been fine in the passing game, but running, what has he done?
Yeah. So I don't know what kind of pass catcher Rashad White is. Obviously, there's the trust with the blocking. I don't know.
White was drafted for his pass catching.
Was he? Okay. Because
He was
they've had
drafted as a fourth rounder because he has pass catching, and that's like we just talked about it. He's succeeding in a place that isn't necessarily his strength. Do I
right.
think he's learning? Duh. Like he's gonna try and get better at the spot, but he can catch the ball. He can catch the ball. There's no reason at this point you need to house Leonard Fournette for anything. You don't need to appease him for anything.
Right.
You need to yell at your offensive line because similar to like we've talked about with Indianapolis, if this O-line don't get better, Rashad White ain't gonna get better. And then it don't matter who you got back there unless it's a Caterpillar bulldozer. Because it ain't gonna work out very well.
Yeah. But Fournette having a rapport and being buddies with Brady could mean something, especially since Brady is very vocal, and I'm sure he will.
He needs to be.
Yeah, he needs to be, but I'm sure he will poke at the coach and be like, "Hey, he's my guy. I want him out there with me."
Yep. And I don't hate that. I don't hate you when you're trying, especially because a lot of their games have been close. You need more experience in that scenario, and I'm 100% behind that.
Yeah.
For the rest of Tampa Bay, Godwin and Evans probably going to see their usual workloads. Seattle kind of allows things to happen in the secondary at times, except for Tariq Woolen, who's very good for a fifth rounder. Big upside in this matchup for K. Otten. Seattle is 31st versus tight ends, almost 31st and 32nd. They're bad. Noah Fant. I want to talk real briefly about Noah Fant. Pick him up if he's there. A lot of people were dropping him when Disley was having his run, which is like week 4 to week 6. And if he's available in your league, he's worth a stash, if not a play, especially going through buys, second round of Buy-Mageddon. He has seen roughly equal snaps to Disley on like a level peg for the last 3 weeks. Tampa Bay's defense has been all over the place, kind of found a little success, but nothing consistent. They've allowed 125 yards per game rushing to Kenneth Walker, should be inbound play him. 125 yards per game is like top 10 worst in the league. Bottom 10? That'd be bottom 10. They've also allowed the 8th most touchdowns and the 10th least air yards. So remember what I was talking about earlier when I said you can find those and you kind of like, oh, that's weird. There's one.
Yeah.
The 8th most touchdowns on the 10th least air yards. So it's kind of like you run the ball on them if you have to, or you make short passes, get first downs, and then touchdowns go in from there in the air. Tampa Bay allows them. That leads me to believe Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf, all the wide receivers in this game you can play except Russell Gage. He didn't travel to Germany.
Yeah, he's out.
Don't play him. He will not. He will score the same amount of fantasy points as you and I will. Seattle has allowed more yards than Tampa Bay defense as a whole. Like, so they've allowed their defenses all in all a little worse. But Seattle's also forced 14 turnovers, which is 4th in the league. So I think it's tough because turnovers, the Bucs don't turn the ball over. Tom Brady's, he's only allowed, the team actually as a whole has only had 7. And there's only one team that has less than 3, and I don't remember what team it was. Whoever it has only 3 turnovers, good for them. Oh, the Eagles. Yes, I do. We all know who it is, the Eagles. But still 7 is not through 7 and 9 games for them. Pretty good. Tom Brady, the casual Tom Brady, and I'm certain 2 or 3 of those were fumbles. So it's not even interceptions. A good matchup. I feel like that defense Seattle forcing turnovers, but they allow more yards to a quarterback who throws a truck ton of yards to two 1A, 1B wide receivers. Now you have the defense that is allowing all these yards is also bad versus tight ends. I feel like that's why Tampa Bay has this 2.5 point favorite. So that's my take on it, my opinion on it, I guess. Start Kate Otten, start Ken Walker. I don't think there's anyone you need to worry about sitting in this except for Leonard Fournette, and that's a worry. That's not even a guarantee. Like, the Seahawks aren't exactly the Bills or the Cowboys when it comes to stopping the run either. So they let Atlanta run all over them 5 weeks ago. So anything else from this one from you, or shall we move on?
Just real quick, the targets, like we said, Tom Brady's throwing a ton. The targets that Evans and Godwin are getting is in the range of 12, give or take, like whatever, more than that, like, so they're not catching as many. For some reason, they're not all on the same page. That is going to, it has to regress to the mean, or positively regress, however you want to say it, in a good way. That has to change for the team. And it's just like, I don't want to say there's a backlog of touchdowns and catches for these guys, but it is like looming, and it's just got to happen. And I can't see, like, if it doesn't happen this game, then maybe I'm out. But against Seattle, I don't see how this doesn't happen.
Yeah. Godwin has, just because he's the only name that I can pull up right now, he has 42 receptions on 65 targets. So real quick, that to me is like 73%, 75% in the ballpark. 65.
Yeah, somewhere around there.
I'm literally just did that number backwards. Did I do that
maybe
wrong?
it's like 2/3, so like 66,
65%.
Okay.
That was high. I went on the wrong side of it, but still, that's just because I'm here already. How many does Mike Evans have? He has 44 on 70, so same ballpark. The average there is probably 75%. They should catch 3 out of 4, especially with Tom Brady.
Yeah.
Sounds about right. So it's got I agree with you. This is a game where I'd watch for Godwin to have another touchdown, finally have a big game. He's been so average. Evans hasn't been stellar the last 2 games, but Godwin has seen a huge amount of targets at the short range. And I'm just so impressed he doesn't have a touchdown yet. Next game, Lions 2-6 at the Bears 3-6. Chicago 3.5 point favorites at home, over under 48.5. I'd say that doesn't seem like a big enough spread being in Chicago, but I kind of get it because that defense is still figuring itself out, I think. The Bears have been cranking the last 3 weeks. Like, let's get one thing right. All right. They only won one of those games versus the Patriots, but that doesn't deter me from playing them in fantasy anymore. I'm so impressed at their ability to change my opinion between week 2 or 3 and week 10. Justin Fields is probably a top 8 fantasy wide receiver, fantasy quarterback. He's not a wide receiver. He would be a fantasy negative wide receiver. But a fantasy probably top 8 quarterback now. He's not throwing for 400 yards, but if he's rushing for 100, getting a touchdown on the ground, throwing for 1 in the air, and has a completion percentage that is above 50% or 60% with no interceptions, what's the difference between throwing for 350 and 2 touchdowns in that?
Yeah, no, I have him as like a top 5 QB this week.
Yeah, this matchup is going to highlight him because, again, this is the most holy defense, and it's one of the worst. It's maybe not the worst, but yeah, Detroit does not limit mistakes. So, I mean, the other 2 opponents that they lost to out of those 3 games limited their mistakes offensively. Detroit doesn't, especially if you can apply any pressure to Jared Goff. He kind of folds like a paper mache hat. Chase Claypool, it seems like it's only been 1 game, but I feel like that offense is more flexible now. It's more bendy. I said it when the trade happened and we talked about it on our trade deadline show. he is going to be another name you have to watch, and that's a third person from the line of scrimmage you're going to have to pay attention to. 1 week it seemed to be successful. They did not win, but it's hard to win when Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle combined for 240 yards.
Yeah.
So, Komet's coming around. Fields is rushing and, more importantly, leading the team. He looks like a leader in the pocket. He doesn't look like a lost boy who stumbled onto the field. Very good. For Detroit, attack more. I don't know how else. Like, you have to do something special on offense.
Mm-hmm.
They won versus Green Bay 15-9. The 29 of the other 31 teams would have beat you.
Yeah.
Like, it's not that 15-9 is a win, but you should be 1-7. It should be that bad. Just like the Falcons, Lions, I don't see Jared Goff returning next year at this rate. I don't see him being worth a return. I don't see him, or similar to how Pittsburgh had it, where they draft somebody and he'll start for a little bit until they get him the rookie warmed up, and bye Jared. Detroit, Amon-Ra is not seeing the same upside, which is kind of the exact same thing I just said in a different way. Josh Reynolds and Khalif Raymond would normally be suitable. Obviously, Reynolds is out this week. Khalif Raymond is my start for this game. They have to throw somebody. Brock Wright is probably your tight end one, and that's an ugly phrase I had to say. Until Chark and Williams come back, I am 100% reevaluating this offense when they come back, because it will roughly be about the same time.
Yeah.
At the end of this month. So we're probably 2 weeks away from Chark, 2 to 4 for Williams. I know they're probably, at this point, there's no point in even bringing him back except for to get him warmed up into the offense and then get ready for next year. So for the running game, DeAndre Swift is a mess. I don't get why he doesn't have an injury designation. So if he doesn't carry the ball 15 times this week and get 5 or 7 targets out of the backfield, I'm lowly disappointed in Dan Campbell, because he's such a monster. Do you not see what he did last year? I'm baffled. And Jamal Williams is a free agent next year, like we just talked about. Like, you can't baby DeAndre Swift if he's ready to go.
Yeah.
And to this point, it seems like Williams is the running back one. So I'm hesitant on playing DeAndre Swift. I put a question mark next to him as my sit, because the second I say that, he'll have that 100-yard game on 12 carries and catch 2 touchdowns and all that crap. The other side, obviously, Chicago's run for 200 plus yards in 4 straight games. So if you need to know if they're rushing this week, spoiler alert, they are a lot. They actually are leading the league in rushing attempts. 38% of their plays are passes, 62% rushes.
I could see that. Yeah.
Well, it's working for him. So, but it's also a split take. Herbert and Montgomery are in that 40 to 60 range. Either way it goes. Justin Fields makes his carries when he needs to make his carries, and scrambles when he needs to make his scrambles, and he's ham and egging. Somebody's the ham, somebody's the egg. So, I don't have anything else for this one. I'm going to take Chicago. They look a lot better. If they play anything like they did they should almost be relaxed at how they play at this point. They should be used to it. After the game against New England, can I duplicate that? After the game against Dallas, all right, that was pretty close. I'm pretty good. And after Miami, they should almost be like, this is how we're playing now.
Yeah.
This is it. This is what we've practiced. We've put it in the game. We've scored 30 points, 29 points or more, 3 straight games. Like, I have nothing else from this one. How about you?
No. Yeah. I mean, like we've said a couple times now, they've figured something out here. I actually read somewhere that over the bye week, the coaches went and studied teams that have running mobile quarterbacks. Jalen Hurts, whatever, and Kyler Murray. There we go. And that's how they started to make this shift, and clearly it's working, because that is what he's good at. So good on them
making a change, and it's working.
Yeah.
They're playing around him now. No, they're not BSing it. Next game, Broncos 3-5 traveling to Tennessee to take on the somehow 5-3 Tennessee Titans. Denver 2.5 point favorites, over under 38. Denver's off by. Tennessee may have Tannehill back, which are two different sparks in their own right. Tannehill coming back is very good for every wide receiver on Tennessee. Their stock has dropped so much. I mean, like Treylon Burks is coming back to a giant pile of dung because that's what, like, they need another one where Malik Willis didn't look great in 2 games. Ryan Tannehill's he's having a hard time putting up 300 yards now. Do you add another wide receiver? Probably get a new quarterback. Tannehill's not exactly working out for you either at this point. One person who doesn't need to be touched is Derrick Henry. We know that. If there's almost as certain as Chicago rushing the ball, is Derrick Henry will also be rushing the ball. But Tennessee defense, I think, is the big story for me in this one. We saw all the injuries come through today. Bud Dupree's out. Jeffrey Simmons is out. Basically, all of the monsters from that Tennessee defense are out except for Kevin Byard. I imagine Byard will probably be on Jerry Jeudy. And that leads me to start Cortland Sutton. You can also faithfully start Greg Dulcich again. He's 6th in tight end scoring since week 6. Lock and load. Cortland Sutton, I think, will have that bounce back game. I think we talked about this after week 8, 3 shows ago, one of them, I don't know. But we said that he hasn't really produced since like week 5. Well, KJ Hamler, we talked about it in the 9, probably not going to be there. Cortland Sutton should see, and Dulcich, they may be your 1-2 receivers. Jeudy will probably be involved in some capacity, but I would withhold the high ceiling expectation. If Tennessee can replicate their pressure that they had on Kansas City, Denver O-line is bad. The one part of the team that's not great.
Yeah.
I put Jeffrey Simmons as the focus, but that was before he was ruled out. So that's gone. Don't have to worry about that as much. Denver's, it's hard to say this, but I feel like Denver's a better 3-5 team than Tennessee is at 5-3. And that's just the difference in, it's like the strength of schedule just rears its ugly face. Look who's Tennessee's had to play 5 times.
Right.
Jaguars, Texans, the Colts. They played 2 of those 3 teams twice already. That's the worst. Both defenses need to dominate, in my opinion. That's why this is the lowest over-under on the slate at 38. And it could, I would not, I'm thinking it's going to go under. I'm thinking we're closer to 34, 35, 36. So another small note, Chase Edmonds will make his debut for the Denver Broncos. I imagine will be thrown right into an average workload. He's had 10 days to warm up with the team, get the playbook down, run some plays, be nice and happy and settled in the Mile High City. So I don't hate starting him. I would not be surprised to see him in the 50 to 60% snap range as his normal workload. Maybe 65, somewhere in that range. So anything else for you from this one? I'm gonna take the Broncos because the Titans, even with Tannehill, still look like doo-doo on a plate.
Yeah. Tennessee. Yeah. They do not feel like a 5-3 team. They feel more like, right. They feel like they would have a similar record to the Broncos. The Broncos obviously haven't been amazing, but they do slowly get a little better. And then as far as like Chase Edmonds and the other running backs for the Broncos, I feel like Chase Edmonds will, at least this game, be more involved in the passing game. And then like, do they just phase out Melvin Gordon altogether, or do him and Latavius Murray sort of split the first and second downs, which is just like, if they do that, then none of these guys are really viable from a fantasy perspective unless they get in the end zone. I mean, Chase, obviously PPR maybe, but I don't know. It's just a messy situation that I really don't want any part of right now.
Yeah. 100% behind it. That rush game, like Chase Edmonds, I think is the one stalwart for this week. If you're going to play one, if you had to choose between the 76 running backs that the Broncos now are forced to choose between, Chase Edmonds is the one who I think is going to get the work. They traded for him. Like he was the piece that came back besides the first round pick. He was the piece that came back for Bradley Chubb. So And it's also interesting to note Chase Edmonds is not a free agent. Like this free agency list has no mention of Chase Edmonds on it. So he's going to be there next year.
Okay.
Double checking myself to make sure I'm not lying.
I mean,
No.
Miami signed a deal with him, so yeah, I would assume it was more than 1 year.
I didn't. Well, I didn't. I wasn't super familiar with that. Yeah, it's actually Raheem Mostert's a free agent this year. So Miami will be looking for a running back. Well, I mean, they can keep Jeff Wilson if they want, but not the point. So yeah, he's gonna be there with Javonte next year. At this point, I would assume you see Chase Edmonds become the bell cow for this team for the remainder of this year, because Javonte will be out. So, do you take Denver or Tennessee?
I guess Denver.
You don't
Not
feel
super,
comfortable.
I'm not
about
super
that.
excited about either.
For the last 2 weeks since that, or maybe 3 weeks since Denver beat Jacksonville, and I said this feels like a game that they've been playing better, and I feel a
Yeah.
lot better about calling them a good football team. Well, not like I didn't want to call them that before, but they were so all over the place. Now I feel like they kind of have an identity.
Yeah.
And that's important.
I mean,
So,
I've said this before and they've disappointed, but on paper, I would definitely say Broncos.
okay, that's a good way to put it on paper, because we said the same thing on paper about Kansas City versus Tennessee last week, and Tennessee almost got the win.
Mm-hmm.
They were very much withholding scoring from the number one offense in the league.
Yeah,
So,
which I guess is sort of like a note here. Like Vrabel's a very good coach. He's proven it time and time again that he
Yep.
can make adjustments and figure it out with crap players.
no offense to everybody in Tennessee. And he actually is rostered Treylon Burke, so he can't mean it. I mean.
Yeah.
All right, we're gonna take our final break. We're gonna come back. It looks like we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games in our 5 fantasy flyers. So we gotta hustle. But with that being said, Taylor, sign us off for our last break.
See you on the flip.
Welcome back. Hey, that's Fantasy Flyer. Hey, gotta have a little excitement going on. This is
Yeah.
part 3. We're gonna
Wake
keep going.
everybody up.
That's right. Even though there's no, I mean, I don't know. Maybe I probably woke somebody up in my apartment. I don't give a shit. Part 3. We're gonna keep going with our week 10 preview. 3-6 Jaguars traveling to Kansas City to face the 6-2 Chiefs. Kansas City 9.5 point favorites. Over under 50.5. Well, let's cut right to the chase. Kansas City is the top rated offense. Multiple wide receiver weapons. Hold on. Okay, we're good. Thought I was about to have an intruder. Jacksonville, it's all right. Jacksonville has very little in the way of receiver defense. They kind of they let Devontae Adams run absolute wild for a half of a game last week. Kelsey is the number one option, and the rest are playable. Juju, MVS. I don't dislike playing Sky Moore with Hardman being out. Sky Moore's seen 26 to 29% of snaps the last 2 weeks. I imagine he sees closer to 35 or 40. He needs the playing time. Kadarius Toney is also in the list.
Yeah.
Those are stretches, let's be fair, but you could do that. Toney played 10% of snaps last week. I get the feeling he sees more towards 20.
I would say between 20 and 30.
Yeah, the starting wide receivers are Hardman, Juju, and MVS. So without Hardman, who's seen 70% of snaps, you got some work to go around.
Mm-hmm.
Jacksonville has to be almost perfect, in my opinion, to stay with Kansas City in this game. Jacksonville's third in the league in hurries, so creating quarterbacks, hurries in the pocket. Problem is Mahomes scrambles. He just don't care. He brushes it off. Jacksonville offensively, slightly above average. They have the most first downs by penalty, which is a fun little fact I didn't know. Yeah, that's it's everything. That's either causing a penalty, pass interference, jumping the line. There's a lot of things. They have the 7th most offensive plays and have allowed. They have 1,321 yards rushing, which is 4th most in the league. Thank you, Travis Etienne, and slightly honorary mention to James Robinson. Chiefs are 4th in run defense. Oh boy. But the Chiefs have also led in like 60% of their games, or 65% of all the games that they played. So slightly removes opponent run ability because they're going to be playing from behind.
Yeah.
I'm starting Pacheco. I think it's time for Pacheco to get. He's like Clyde Edwards-Helaire had 17% of snaps last week, which is just absolutely pitiful. But Pacheco himself, he had actually he only had 22. It was Jerick
22,
McKinnon,
yeah.
62. But if McKinnon sits, I'm going Pacheco, and I'm still going to take Pacheco. He was still efficient in his 22% snaps, so I'm not changing my plan. Sit Trevor Lawrence because I think that this is going to become a very, very down game for him. I can see Kansas City winning this by 2 touchdowns or more. So,
Yeah.
anything from you from this one?
No, I don't know if I would go gung ho on Pacheco myself, but it does seem like it's trending in his direction to sort of take things over.
He got the start last week too, which is another plus side to that.
Yeah.
Would have hoped to see a little bit more, but also the team didn't run. This was all passing from them last. Like the leading rusher last week was Mahomes because they
Right.
were playing from behind. Like, moving along, Dolphins 6-3 at the Browns 3-5. Miami 3.5-point favorites in Cleveland, over under 49.5. Miami, they're successful. Let's not be wrong. They're 6-3 for a reason. And Tua hasn't lost a game that he's played entirely. So thumbs up there. Is Miami like this one trick pony though? Like we see Jeff Wilson, like, oh, Jeff Wilson had carries. Yeah, that's great. Raheem Mostert, no, he had a touchdown. But everything runs through Tua, Hill, and Waddle.
Right.
Seems like there's little else. Not to say that little else that you can stop Hill and Waddle. You don't know who it's going to. Like Mike Gesicki kind of gets features here and there, but like it seems like that's like the one trick pony mentality for them.
Yeah.
I think we're both interested to see if Jeff Wilson fully becomes an RB1 after his workload. He has a full week of practice. A lot of interesting things to be seen there. With Raheem Mostert, like I just mentioned, being a free agent, I would not be surprised to see Shanahan kind of get out of here. Get out of here, Raheem. You're okay. You're almost 30 years old.
Wait, Shanahan?
No, Mostert.
No, yeah, but never mind. It sounded like you said it. I wouldn't be surprised to see Shanahan, but Shanahan's not the coach. Yeah. Yeah, restart.
It's Brissett Brissett is coming to the end of his games as a starter for Cleveland.
Mhm.
I don't know if we all forgot about Deshaun. I might have a bunch of charges, but I'm playing football Watson. Yeah. This is where you are going. This team may not have a shot by the time if they lose this in the next game, the next 2 games. Deshaun Watson might be playing for warm up. This could be over. He's gonna have 5 games to make up 4 in the standings. I don't think it's gonna go very well. Cooper and Donovan Peoples-Jones are like the 1-2. David Bell's filling in. Njoku is out again this week, so it's kind of those 2 and DPJ, Cooper, and Nick Chubb, who is still the league's leading rusher. So he's a mammoth. 105 yards per game, I believe. Let him go. Cleveland defense, the big thing here is they have to hold Miami for massive yardage. Problem is Miami's number 1 in yards this year in all formats, all yards.
Yeah.
Number 1. And Cleveland is allowing the 4th most yards per completion. So I don't know. It doesn't seem like it's really going to. It seems like Miami will probably win this game by a lot. I don't think it's going to go very well. Nick Chubb running against Miami, they're not amazing. They're mid-pack against the run. And Nick Chubb is not mid-pack as a running back. So that'll be the one thing that can keep him. As with like 80% of the rest of the games they played, if you hold Nick Chubb under 100 yards and you keep him out of the end zone, your chances skyrocket.
Yeah.
So Anything else for you from this one?
No, yeah, I mean, I threw that 4 downs about Wilson and Mostert in there for a reason. So yeah, we'll see how it pans out. But yeah, Tua, Waddle. I mean, sorry, Hill, Waddle via Tua is the Miami offense.
That makes sense. I have no sits for this game. I didn't really think like DPJ would probably be the closest, maybe Mike Gesicki, but really any of them. Gesicki has Waddle who's throwing for like 320 yards a game, so he can't even rule him out. And I think Brissett's going to have to throw in this one, so it's not exactly the smartest idea to take DPJ, who's at 80% of snaps on the field, take him out of the equation. So my start of the game is
My name is Jeff.
Jeff Wilson. Wait.
You got it all.
I got a little bit of something. For those who don't know, including Taylor, because I didn't tell him, I got a second soundboard and I love it. Yeah, it's fun. Next game, Texans and the Giants. The Texans are 1-6-1. What the hell? The Texans are 1-6-1. They are traveling to New York to take on the Giants, who are 6-2. Giants are only 5-point favorites at home. Over unders 41. This is the second host to be hosted.
Round 2. Fight.
There we go.
Nice.
Keep on with the theme. There's not a lot to say about the Texans, right? The Texans are the Texans. Yeah, they run the ball a lot now because Dameon Pierce is a steal from the 4th round.
Yeah.
He's gonna keep climbing, man. This is a game against a team that he can really excel. If he doesn't have 120 yards, I'll be so surprised. He just ran for 130 against the Eagles.
Yeah.
Like he should have 120 in the first half. Like it's bad. The Giants have something to prove as well. They lost before their bye to Seattle in what I would say is their worst game of the year. I don't think that's a stretch. It's debatable, but I don't think it's a stretch. Their offense, unfortunately, is like obviously Daniel Jones, but it's Darius Slayton, Wan'Dale Robinson, Saquon Barkley, and then Tanner Hudson. Like that's about it. I don't see. There's not a lot of pieces to, and that's probably why this team is run based too.
Right.
It makes sense. They don't have anybody out there who can run and attract two opposing cornerbacks or a quarterback and a safety and open up the middle of the field or anything like that. There's nothing there. For Houston, Davis Mills and the Houston offense, they've been improving. We saw that they kept with the Eagles for a half of the football game Thursday before yesterday, whatever. Defense has also been applying pressure more effectively. They're quietly now the 8th in the league in tackles for loss, which is something that we saw Saquon and Daniel Jones get not wrecked for, but it was something that they were hurt by for sure in the Seattle game. So my start is Mills. My sit is Wan'Dale Robinson because Houston is 20th in yards allowed to passing offenses and 7th in interception percentage at 2.8. So they're not a bad team for defending passes. Daniel Jones doesn't throw it a lot.
Right.
That's the one plus side, but that's another reason why I don't think Wan'Dale's a great start. I don't think Slayton's really a particularly smart start either. I'm almost forced to play him in our league because of buys, and that sucks, but it is what it is. So I'll start Mills. The secondary for the Giants doesn't super scare me. It's more their pressure they can apply. So that's my take on that. Anything for you from this one? I got the Giants winning 24-21. I see it's only 5 points. I also think that the Texans are a sneaky team.
Yeah, we've said this before that they and we were talking about this in the pre-show, but they continue to sort of stay in games and make it closer than you'd expect. So yeah, I have the boring score as we kind of labeled it last week that 4 teams ended up actually getting. I have Texans 17, Giants 20. But I would not be surprised if the sneaky Texans somehow win this game. But the Giants have, unless they're dropping off for some reason, they've been consistent and finding ways to win games without a lot of offensive pieces.
That's key. It's key for the Giants, especially this year. I don't think for their oh, we have a trade with you.
Oh, in our league? Yeah.
Yeah, you just did a trade.
I had put that up before. Did it go through?
Oh, I wouldn't even say anything if this wasn't fantasy football relevant. So we have breaking news. Taylor has traded away Aaron Jones in our fantasy football league, and $20. You paid for a third of his salary, or
Well, so
250.
yeah, the thinking was, I mean, I need somebody in replacement for Jones. So I got Devin Singletary. I don't care really, but I just need to be able to play somebody. I know my team is no longer in the hunt, and I wanted to get something for Jones, who is unfortunately an aging running back, but I still see him having at least one or two more solid fantasy seasons. But yeah, I wanted to get that at least a second round draft pick. I got a couple other, like a round 4 and a round 5. So yeah, I did give him 20, but yeah,
That's
I
more
had to
for
give
you
him
being
20.
out of the hunt. That's more for
What's
you
that?
being. That's more for you being out of the hunt.
Oh
But yeah,
yeah,
you had to give him 20 because of salary difference.
exactly. Yeah,
Jones is
fortunately I had enough to do that, but yeah, he wouldn't have been able to take Jones without that.
So you got a 20. So the full trade, Aaron Jones and $20 of his $47 salary for Devin Singletary, a 2023 fifth round pick, and a 2025 second and a 2025 fourth. Okay.
It's
So you
not
got some
not
picks in the
terrible.
future. No. For somebody who you were on the fence, we talked about this in pre-show. For somebody who is on the fence for you, whether you're keeping, because you also have Jonathan Taylor, who's $51 of your $500 salary, which is 1/10 for one player.
Yeah.
One of them has to go. And at the end of the day, Singletary is an undrafted free agent. That could be a great move come next August.
If he goes somewhere, yeah.
Because I traded him Singletary, not to sidetrack the show, but I traded him Singletary for a second round pick. How'd that work out? Pretty bad. Because now he had to ship Singletary and another second round pick plus 2 other picks to get Aaron Jones, who will probably have to let go this year or next year.
Yeah, I
So.
mean, he's making a playoff run. That's why, yeah.
Yeah, and I totally get it. But that's breaking. It popped up and I wanted to read what it was. And when I saw that it was fantasy related with our league and with you, we were gonna sit and chat about it. So anyways, back to the show. Next game, Saints 3-6 at the Steelers, 2-6. New Orleans 1.5 point favorites at the formerly Heinz Field. I don't know what it's called. I'm still calling it Heinz Field. I'm boycotting that name. Over unders at 40. Well, we'll just sum this up. These are two underperforming teams. Pickett, I think, has his first chance in any of the games he started against a below average defense. He has played some monster defense, Eagles, Bucks. I don't even remember any of the other ones because he got smashed in most of them. The Bills, like, not one good. Pickens and Deontay Johnson, they have to pick up some love from the departure of Chase Claypool. New Orleans is not amazing at any pass defense. They're like mid-category, like 14th to 19th, and like so many like yards in air or aerial yards allowed. I had heard that wrong team, wrong Pennsylvania team. Pittsburgh is phasing Najee Harris out or is considering it because Jalen Warren has been more effective, and it's not wrong. He's been more efficient yards per carry probably 3-4 different times this year. Warren saw 30% snaps in week 9. I would wait and see about his fantasy value. As a Najee Harris owner in a lot of different formats, you have to stash Jalen Warren because you may be very quickly finding yourself without a running back who is projected to be a top 10, top 12. And that hurts. So if Jarvis Landry plays, he's my start. Sit the whole running back thing for Pittsburgh. I'm all behind letting Pickett find his rhythm this week and really the next couple weeks because he's facing some lower tier defenses. Good. Like he needs it. He needs a confidence boost. He really does.
Yeah.
I actually want to take the Steelers in this because If there's something they can guard, it's a deep ball. So Olave may be a little harder off the table. Juwan Johnson may have a good game. It's still Andy Dalton. And I'm waiting for Andy Dalton to come crashing back to the sub Kirk Cousins that he should be. So I kind of want to take the Steelers at home.
Yeah, at home. I mean, yeah, I'm not really quite sure what to say
That
about
was
this one.
very, very in tune. Please go further in depth.
No, who's the coach again? Mike Tomlin. I would have more faith in him, especially they're at home. And I'm trying to remember if they just came off their bye or not, but
They did.
they did, right? So
Yes. I had
all-
only one quarterback last week. I would remember.
okay. So yeah, all of these things sort of playing into the Steelers figuring some stuff out here with the young quarterback. Yeah, I have a little more faith in the Steelers in this particular matchup. Yeah, I don't know what's happening with the running backs. Najee he wasn't even efficient last year, but it was sort of working. I don't know. I don't even want to speak to how that's going to work out, but Deontay Johnson is due again. This is like, it's not that they have these things stored up and that they're going to reach these particular milestones throughout the year, but he is on average not hitting like the NFL averages for touchdowns and stuff like that. So he is due. And I can see them figuring some stuff out after the bye week and coming out and having a decent game here.
I think that's for all of us and Pittsburgh fans alike. Let's hope. Next game, Colts 3-5-1 at Las Vegas, 2-6 Raiders. The Raiders are 4.5 point favorites. Over under at 41. Debut of new coach Jeff Saturday. I don't know how he can fix the O-line in 5 days, but he should have damn well tried.
Yeah.
Ellinger is slated to start again. Jim Irsay has said he is not opposed to the better QB, Matt Ryan, starting this season again. A lot of folks on Twitter are like, that makes no sense. They're trying to save money, blah, blah, blah. He's going to, if he gets hurt and there's an injury guarantee for next year, blah, 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 blah. Two things. Okay. So let's shut up one because you sound stupid. He has missed 5 games in 14 years. Stop it. You sound silly. And 2 of them happened recently, which would have happened anyway because Frank Reich shouldn't have been where he was.
Yeah.
So let's stop with that. Number 2, there's no reason why you're not out of the race for this AFC. Like if Tennessee, who could very easily lose to Denver this week, and you can not easily, but you can beat the Raiders, even without Shaq Leonard, who just went on the IR, you can beat the Raiders. If you do that, you're a game back. The one game.
Mm-hmm.
The AFC South is so atrocious. You've done all of this pussyfooting around, and you're still in the hunt. I don't know how any better way to say it. If you think that they should not play Matt Ryan because they want the young kid to learn, be sure you're out. And they're not. They're not. If this was the Texans at 1-6-1, okay, let's leave the old guy on the sideline. Let's let the young guy get some reps. The team no. I'm scrolling through Twitter and I want to. There's no point in telling any of these people this, so I'll do it on my platform. Screw them. Twitter, you can't. There's no point in arguing these people. The Colts are not out of that division. They can make the playoffs. Is it scary? Yes. Is it any more deserving than the Buccaneers? No. Or anyone in the NFC South for that matter. But they can do it. I hate to say it, but there's so much common sense to putting Matt Ryan back in, and I would not be surprised if this is the last week, especially if Ellinger doesn't absolutely ball out.
Mm-hmm.
If he doesn't throw for 220, 240, have 2 touchdowns, rush for 40, the team wins handily or at least competes to the end. Nah. Makes no sense.
And
You're paying Matt Ryan what? You're going to pay him $30 million to sit down just because you're afraid he's hurt?
right. And whether people agree with the decision to have Saturday as the interim coach, they clearly made the decision to part ways with Reich because they think that they have an opportunity to turn things around and actually win the division. And they have Jonathan Taylor, they have Michael Pittman, Alec Pierce has shown promise. They have this young Kylan Granson tight end that's not terrible. They have they're not a terrible team if they can turn things around. Matt Ryan is a talented quarterback when things are working. And yeah, they might not have the best O-line situation right now, which doesn't make a lot of sense because last year they were great. I guess they have some injuries, but yeah, they have an opportunity to turn things around here and they are making an effort to do so. So yeah, to stick with Ellinger when they're still in the hunt doesn't make sense.
And that's the other thing is you make the coaching change now. We want to win games.
Right.
So you want to get a mid first round pick because tanking is real. If Reich stays there, like I would say past week 11, like if he was there right now, they lose, they keep losing. They're tanking.
Mhm.
They ain't tanking because they know they can make the playoffs. And I think that's just a goal.
Right.
Make the playoffs at this point. You lose in the first round, super cool. Everything else doesn't matter. Anyway, moving along to the actual game. Raiders have Devontae Adams, Foster Moreau. He's going to take place for Waller. Matt Collins will be the wide receiver 2 with Hunter Renfrow on the sidelines. Keelan Cole, I still like this week. There's who would expect to guard Keelan Cole? That's just my take on it. I feel like the other 3 would be the first names. It's not a particularly interesting game from the scope of it, but I am interested to see how Jeff Saturday handles things. The Raiders spread is perfectly understandable because of the offensive advantages, but it also has a bad O-line for the Colts versus a defense that doesn't really successfully apply pressure. The defense has had moments like we saw them against Russell Wilson in the Broncos earlier this year. The O-line had similar holes in it, and Wilson got sacked a couple times. Team couldn't move. It was rough. New play caller. You want to see that change. And otherwise, you could see a repeat. In which case, LVR, the Raiders will win this one. So, Ellinger's not a top 30 quarterback. I just want to point that out in any fantasy format in the league. Like, if you really didn't want to play Matt Ryan, why didn't you go and pick up like Mitch Trubisky? Like, there's a good name that's going to sit on a bench for most of the year.
Yeah.
Like, you could have picked up so many more, like Nick Mullins from Minnesota, and just so many other people. Start. I have Matt Collins. I actually like Keelan Cole, just as much as Matt Collins. He's obviously Holland's got to be the start because he's going to be on most formats. You should go out and try and pick him up off your waivers. For the Colts, sit them all if they're not named Jonathan Taylor. So you have to play Jonathan Taylor. There's just no telling when he could have a 150-yard 2-touchdown game. There's just no telling. Anything else for you from this one? I think I've exhausted all my breath. I'm ready to go to bed now.
Yeah. No, but I might still play Pittman. Maybe as like a flex.
Yeah. He has flex. That's true. That's a good one. I guess I'll not name Jonathan Taylor and Michael Pittman. Next game, Cardinals 3-6 at the Rams 3-5. Rams are 1.5 point favorites, over under 40.5. Neither team runs the ball well. They're both bad. The Rams don't score. They're the least scoring team in the NFL now. Congratulations. You should take an award for that because you have Cooper Kupp, who's literally leading the league in yards almost. Yards after catching anyway. Kyler Hopkins is like the similar. It's Kyler Hopkins versus Stafford and Kupp. So Stafford relies on Kupp to make this team look good. Like, let's just face it. Without Kupp, this is the Carolina Panthers, except worse. Because the Panthers can run the ball most of the time. I have a prediction for this game. Neither team runs for more than 80 yards, and both Cooper Kupp and DeAndre Hopkins have a touchdown. So I don't have anything. This is not an interesting game to me. Not because they don't run the ball, but because these are two teams that came into the season, and unfortunately, they were overrated. Did I think that they were rated perfectly fine? Absolutely. A lot of people did. I thought they were very handily 7, 8, 9 win teams. Wrong. Like, just.
Does the rushing?
That's all I got.
Does the rushing prediction include Kyler Murray's rushing?
No,
Okay. That makes sense.
because there's no. Well, Kyler Murray, like
Just clarification.
he's like I said on Tuesday's show, he is 35% of their rushing yards. As a
Yeah,
team.
exactly.
And you have James Conner, Eno Benjamin, and Darrell Williams. One of them hasn't been healthy all year. The other two can't figure out what to do with the football when you hand it to them. I don't know why.
I
have
do
no-
think if Connor stays healthy, gets healthier, he could be decent moving forward. I think I was reading something to the effect of him also like not being near the mean in a negative way and regressing in a positive way.
Well, let's hope, because that team looks bad in a run fashion. Their whole line has
Yes.
so many holes, and that's the thing. Their problem is their left guard, right guard, center, and their right tackle. It's just atrocious. Start Tyler Higbee. Cardinals are dead last in the league against tight ends. Sit Allen Robinson, because you shouldn't have been starting him ever anyway. Sunday night football game, Chargers 5-3 at the 49ers that are 4-4. San Francisco with a touchdown. Their spread, they're up 7 points, over under 45.5. Herbert leads the banged up Chargers in San Francisco for the Sunday night matchup. Keenan Allen is sidelined, which means it's a run it back scenario from last week. Josh Palmer, Michael Bandy, DeAndre Carter, Austin Eckler, Gerald Everett, fire him up. Palmer is the clear wide receiver one. This is a great match for the running backs between Eckler and CMC. Like, talk about juice galore. San Francisco has Debo back. Time to see how Jimmy G handles all the passing options. Spoiler alert, I still don't think throws 45 times. It looked like the defense for the 49ers was getting hurt, but this week, I mean, they get Dre Greenlaw back, Azeez Al-Shaair, two important front seven players. CMC, I imagine, will have a big week. Chargers are bad versus all forms of the run. Kittle will probably have a big week. Chargers are bad defensively. I think that's all this game needs. I'm starting DeAndre Carter. I love his. I think I said it last week, and he was fine, but it wasn't quite like a ceiling game. I think this will be a good opportunity for him if Herbert locks and loads one up. I'm gonna sit Everett out of everybody, and that's kind of a light sit. I wouldn't, like, if you have to play him, but I wouldn't avoid him that hard. But I would say ceiling's like, without a touchdown, 8 points, 9 maybe. Projections don't look good. They look somewhere between 3 and 4 receptions and like 30 to almost 42 yards.
Yeah, I mean, San Francisco has a pretty good D, so.
Yeah. Anything else from this one for you? I like San Francisco. This should be this should be like this would be the second easiest game to predict, in my opinion, compared to the game we're about to talk about.
I think it might be a little closer than the spread, but I definitely, 49ers definitely should win this, especially on paper.
Last game, Monday Night Football, the 4-5 Commanders at the undefeated Eagles. This is the third and final host v host.
Finish him.
Philadelphia 11-point
Nice.
favorites, over under 44. I don't think this is a real game. This is nothing. This one probably is the most accurate spread. Hurts is phenomenal. The Commanders are not. We said Jahan Dotson's practicing, but he's still out this week. So start Curtis Samuel, sit Robinson. They can't afford to run this ball because they're going to have to throw it all over the place. Taylor Heineke is. Start McLaurin. Everybody else, if it's not an Eagle, don't play him. Philadelphia leads the league in first half points per game at 20.1, which is 4 clear of Buffalo in second place. So they score in the first half. Washington hasn't all year. They're next to last. They score 6 points per game in the first half. And they actually went from 32nd to 31st because they put Sam Ehlinger in. Because in the last 4 weeks,
Heineke.
Nope. The Colts went from 31st to 32nd in first half points scored. So
Oh, I thought you were still talking about the Commanders. Okay.
no, I'm just saying they went from 30. They were dead last in the league in first half points.
I gotcha.
And then Sam Ehlinger reprieved them of that pain. Yeah, Eagles win this one hands down. If they don't, I get to go and talk to so many Eagles fans on Facebook who continuously seem to brag that their team is the best in the NFL and no one will beat them, and they've already won the Super Bowl, and other dumb claims from Pennsylvania. So Anything else for you from this one? I think we should go to the 5 fantasy flyers. So we got about 7 minutes left. I got Philly 30-18.
Okay. I have Eagles 26, Commanders 16.
Okay. I like that. Yeah, there's nothing else to say about that. That's probably like that's a Monday Night Football game you watch knowing what's going to happen by the end.
Yeah.
You just want to see how the story unfolds.
Right.
We'll go on to the 5 fantasy flyers. Time to hear the birds coming out. So the birds means we got some flyers. You want to go first?
Yeah, sure.
As
So-
usual, these 5 fantasy flyers worth 15 host v host points for the most points scored in a PPR format. So go ahead with your 5.
I will say I feel a little less confident than I have the past 2 weeks, but
Yeah, you caught me. So.
Khalil Herbert is my first,
Okay.
followed by Jeff Wilson Jr., Mac Hollins,
My name is Jeff.
Rondale Moore, and Cade Otton. I'll just throw out a couple other names. I like Pollard if Zeke doesn't play. Still have a decent game even if he does, and Gabe Davis if Allen plays. Josh Allen.
Sounds good. I like that. So my 5 are vastly different from yours, and they are more bottom dwellers. So if you felt very unsecure with yours, I hope you don't lose. Because Khalil Herbert's part of that 200-yard rushing streak from Chicago. Jeff Wilson was probably going to be at least halftime with Mostert. Mac Hollins has a huge boost. Rondale Moore, Cade Otton, great picks, honestly. So my 5, 1 is Foster Moreau. If you haven't heard me tout him before the Raiders bye, he averages 15.2 fantasy points when Darren Waller sits and Moreau starts and plays more than 60% of snaps. I'm hoping that that returns to the mean because he had 6 fantasy points when that happened the first time this year. So I'm going to say that goes back up against a Colts team that is second to worst in the league versus tight ends. My number 2 is Khalif Raymond. Somebody's got to catch the ball in Detroit. Number 3, DeAndre Carter. I'm going to lock and load back on Carter. Was worth it last week. I'm gonna take the deep ball, the one-time deep ball. If you can get 1 from San Francisco, great defense. If they can get 1. Number 4, you went with Mac Hollins. I'm gonna go with Keelan Cole.
Okay.
I'm gonna go the next step down. That could turn out to be a great pick. He could put up a goose egg on 4 targets. No one knows. It's great. Number 5 for me, I don't really have one, so I'm going to steal one of yours so it evens the field. I'm going to go Rondale Moore. So I'll take Rondale off your table.
Yeah.
I don't have one. Not because there's any good reason, but because I think that's a good pick. And is he flyer worthy?
He's like borderline.
He's
Yeah.
borderline. I would say the qualifications for a flyer are: number 1, it can't be rostered in more than 3/4 of leagues. 75% or more are not happening. That's not a flyer. That's somebody who's probably a must start. We know the names. We don't have to say them between all the positions. Examples: George Kittle, Justin Jefferson, Christian McCaffrey, etc. Number 2 is, well, if they're playing and they're going to have to, there has to be some sort of upside to them. There has to be some sort of, obviously that's what we want. That's why we pick them as a fantasy flyer. So if they're not rostered, they're not, I guess, must starts, so to speak. They would qualify. Cade Otton I would almost put Cade Otton out of that, except for the fact that Cameron Brate could very well come back. And I think that's going to be 50-50 based on that logic. He's a flyer. He is not going to see the bell cow work.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have anything else for the fantasy flyers themselves. Good set of flyers there. I like your names you came up with to add on. I don't think there's really anything else. I'll reference your list that you sent me earlier. Dulcich should be mostly rostered. If he's not, go get him. I'll say it for the 3rd week in a row. Noah Fant, another good one. Again, borderline probably, but he got dropped in a lot of leagues because of the Disley weeks. You said Khalif Raymond, Josh Palmer again, probably not a flyer, but
Yeah,
he's
I kind of ruled him
close.
out as not being a flyer
He's
anymore, but
close.
yeah.
Deontay Johnson could very well be because he hasn't been doing well for a
right. I
minute.
think for him, even though he's a wide receiver 1 for the team, a lot of people are probably hesitant to play him, which is why I think he could be considered a flyer.
I'm with it. Kareem Hunt, great. I think it's a great pick. He's probably rostered simply for the handcuff reason. But I would consider the handcuff as an exception to this rule. Khalil Herbert, same thing, right? Handcuff, but also at this point is almost splitting 50-50. 50-50 fouls handcuff rule. I see that's the fantasy flyer. So just some names to pick out for your team. I don't think there's anything else left for this show. We got through all of it. We're going to come back on Tuesday. We're going to go through all these games in a review fashion. We're going to go through the host v host. We're going to have a fairly important game, waiver wire game. We're getting towards trade deadline for fantasy leagues. Thanksgiving's usually right around that time. Just a little reminder, the Tuesday before Thanksgiving will be no show. I don't know the date off the top of my head. So no show on that day. The Black Friday edition will be a little bit different because we're going to have 3 games on Thursday and like 7 for Sunday. So
Yeah, November 22nd is the Tuesday.
There it is, November 22nd. So the 23rd, there will be no show posted. 22nd, no filming. 23rd, no post. So anything else for you? We got 15 seconds.
That's it.
All right, perfect. As usual with the sign off, let me just
Bob Barker reminding you, help control the pet population. Have your pet spayed or neutered. Goodbye, everybody.